Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, all the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Thanks for joining us. It's campaign season. It's Monday night, September 30th, and we're about 2 months out. Yeah, it's getting time. Tonight I have a very special guest. Actually, we're honored to have her in the House. She was elected to her first term back in '95. She's been there a little while. I won't say how long, I'll let her tell you that. But my first guest is the current District Supervisor of Mason, Penny Groves. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Cesar. It's wonderful to see you again.
I have missed talking to you. I know a few people don't really know you, but let's spend a little time on what back in '95 compelled you or inspired to get back in or get in this race thing.
I have a degree in political science from the University of Oregon.
Ooh,
so I have used my political science degree almost every day since I walked across the stage to get that diploma.
Okay.
And I came to Washington, D.C. to work for my home state senator. This was in the middle of the Vietnam War. And my home state senator was Wayne Morse of Oregon, who was one of the two senators who voted against the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. Oh. So I like to say I started at the top and I worked my way down to local government. But you know, constituent service is the same.
Yeah.
It's the same whether you are in the U.S. Senate or if you are in Fairfax County, because you're trying to help people with their problems. The issues are different. At the local level, we don't declare war. We don't help you with your Social Security, things like that. But we do help you with the everyday aggravations of life. And that's what makes you get up every morning.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I think you didn't have a primary this time, right?
I had a primary in 2015, but not this time.
Okay.
As you mentioned, I was elected in 1995 for the first time. I did turn the board blue. At that time, it was a 5-5 split, and I took the Mason district seat from a Republican. It had been Tom Davis's seat for several years before that, but I knew it was a Democratic district because I had done my homework. And I've been elected 6 times, and I'm going for my 7th.
Congratulations. Now, you're staying on. There's a big turnover on the board going on. So thank you for that institutional knowledge. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, where do you see the board going?
It's a little scary because people that I've worked with for years are leaving the board. They're retiring, and after years of service, and that's fine. We honor their service, and I was delighted to be able to work with them. But this means now we have a new crop of candidates.
How many are seats?
There are 4 seats that we know are being vacated, and the chairman's seat is also vacated because Sharon Bulova is retiring. But Jeff McKay, the current Lee District Supervisor, is running for chairman. So we have the potential for, there are essentially 5 seats in play.
And for the people at home, that's half the board.
That's half the board.
Yeah.
We have not had this kind of a change or potential change since 1991, and that was the year that the board added the Sully district seat. So there was a new seat, a new board member, and I think there were 3 or 4 people new that year. When I got elected in '95, we had 3 new supervisors. There's only been one time where the entire board ran for re-election and the entire board got re-elected, and that was 2015. So there was, everybody ran, but I knew that would never happen again because you see that, people are probably beginning to think about retirement. I thought about it for a while, about should I run, and I thought, this board needs to have some institutional memory because I was elected in '95. The next nearest person who will still be on the board was elected in 2007. That's a lot of time to not have, the institutional memory.
Hey, that's a long time. I mean, I'm just looking. I mean, and again, thank you for your service in that spot. But what keeps you going there? I mean, let's talk about some of the issues, like priority list. I mean, what have you got to get done before you decide?
Well, one of the things you do, and I discovered this when I got elected, you derive energy from people. So if you're out there with people all the time, there's some vibes there that really keep you going. But there are so many issues that need to be addressed, and some of them are the redevelopment issues in my district. We just did the Lincolnia plan earlier this summer, And now we've got the plan. Now I want to see it come into fruition because we've got a property owner that really has the patience, the vision, and the investment to put into redeveloping that. And the same way with Seven Corners, we have a plan. Annandale, we have a plan. I really want to see it come to fruition, or at least get started. So there are things that you really don't want to leave undone. And I think that really was what was driving me to run again. But it's also that I love my job. I just don't want to give it up. And I would hope that the voters feel the same way.
Well, let's hope they do. We can't advocate at this point, but development.
Development.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because it's a challenge all over the Northern Virginia region, particularly in Fairfax County. In your district, what are some of the?
We have a pretty high vacancy rate. Fairfax County was hit, but Mason District especially was hit hard by the BRAC base realignment and closure a number of years ago, when the administration, I think it was the Obama administration, probably went back to the Bush administration, wanted to move a lot of federal agencies out of rental space. That hit us hard. But we've been doing some really interesting things in repurposing buildings. There was one building up at Seven Corners that was not a victim of BRAC, but it was vacant. It went into foreclosure. We needed a new school because one of our elementary schools was getting so big. And the school system was able to buy the building and gut it in the inside, sort of insert a whole new school inside, and have it up and running by the time school started that fall.
Wow.
Really cool. The building looks the same on the outside. There is a gym added now. But that was a wonderful opportunity to do an urban style school, because it's 3 levels, it's 3 floors, out of a building that otherwise was going to be derelict. Similarly, in November, we will be opening, I should say the developers will be opening 5600 Columbia Pike, which is right at the beginning of the corner of Arlington County and Fairfax County on Columbia Pike. That too was about a 9-story building. That one was emptied of federal agencies, and it sat vacant for a while. It has a parking deck already, and it's going to be a live-work a building. They've sort of gutted the inside. These buildings.
So mixed use?
You could live and you could have your business there. If the buildings have the right floor plate and the elevators and everything are in the right place, they can be rehabbed very nicely into these between 600 and about 1,100 square feet. Really cool, really cool. And those will be ready. The first ones will be available in November. I'm excited about that.
Excellent. What else? I mean, a little bit, you've got your district, but what do you see in some of the things across the county?
Across the county, there's a lot of work going on the Richmond Highway corridor down in the Lee District and Mount Vernon District to try and upgrade all of that. For years, it's just been a long haul with lots of franchises alongside. 1-story buildings, lots of little lots.
Like strips and strips.
Yes.
And strips.
So what they're trying to do is make that a location that will be more attractive for investment. Some transportation improvements. Tyson's is going gangbusters.
Yeah.
You know, we were working on that for years, and it's been exciting because people really want to invest there. You can go there almost every other week and see another new building sort of going up, popping up. Another thing that's really exciting for a lot of people, because everybody wants to be Mosaic. And, of course, your studios are right here.
We're right here. Love it. Love it.
It's been extremely successful.
Yeah.
And I can
remember. Again, a lot of mixed use, a lot of walkable
communities, places where people can live. They don't have to get into their car to do groceries, to go to dinner, to go to the movies. They don't have to get in their car. They can do it all pedestrian.
Metro's walkable here, too.
And and that is a lot of things that we have a challenge in Mason District is that we don't have a metro station in Mason. It was taken off the plans for Skyline years ago by actually by Arlington County. And it's a problem that we don't have metro. We have good bus service, but we don't have metro.
Interesting. We touched on it a little bit from the development, but housing
Housing.
across the county and in your district, however you want to take that. I know we're grappling with this in Herndon. It's a huge issue, and it seems like we're always behind.
And we are. And it's not a Fairfax County issue. It's a national issue.
Yeah.
However, in the region, in the metro region that's covered by the Council of Governments, we are 320,000 units short of what we will need.
Say that again.
320,000 units. That's apartments, condos, townhouses, single-family detached. We need a menu of housing, and we need it to be affordable for many incomes. And so that's the regional piece. Earlier this month, the COG board adopted an agreement, a plan for all of the jurisdictions to do their share. Now, what Fairfax County will have to do in the next 15 years or so is 60,000 units. Some of those will be in Tyson's, some of those will be in each of the districts. We need to find those locations where we can do some denser multifamily, because that's what people are asking for. Everybody deserves a clean, decent place to live. And that's one of the things I've always been trying to do, is make sure that we've got those clean, decent places for anybody, whether you are somebody who is just facing homelessness or you are somebody who can afford $1 million house. You need to be able to find what you want in this county.
So is the board, or you're envisioning more product availabiliability or workforce or affordable, a combination of these things?
It's a combination.
Okay.
It's a combination of things. There's a real concern, I think, among people because of what happened in Seattle with Amazon, that all of a sudden all the housing became very expensive.
Yeah.
Well, we're already expensive even without Amazon, but now that Amazon has selected Northern Virginia as its HQ2 headquarters, I think we have an opportunity. I've talked to some of the Amazon folks, an opportunity to work together on some of these housing issues. It is not going to be easy. They're not making any more land. We're going to have to go up in some cases. But I think we have a real opportunity, especially in Mason District, which does already have some affordable housing. And we've got those plans already in place for additional housing.
Well, that's why we need you to stay there on the board and address this issue. In fact, you need to stay here because, folks, we're going to come back with Supervisor Penny Gross.
Your time is gonna come. Your time is gonna come. It's up to you to reach out to be that friend who comes along. Your day is gonna come.
When you make a friend, you make a difference.
Your day is gonna come.
Friendship. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Good one, son.
Last summer, my new dad took me on vacation. First, we went deep sea fishing. Wow!
I'm so proud of you, son.
And then we went on Thunder Shark. That was awesome! Let's go again. 3 times. I gotta say, it was pretty cool.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
What's it feel like when a woman's having a heart attack? Chest pain, like there's a ton of weight on your chest. Severe shortness of breath. Unexplained nausea. Cold sweats. There's an unusual tiredness and fatigue. There's unfamiliar dizziness or lightheadedness. Unusual pain in your back, neck, jaw, one or both arms, even your upper stomach are signs you're having a heart attack. Don't make excuses. Make the call to 911 immediately. Learn more at womenshealth.gov/heartattack.
Operation Wonder Park is a go!
There's nothing more powerful than imagination.
Honey, have you seen my cell phone?
But don't just imagine.
My park came to life?
Ooh, a plot twist.
Use STEM to build, create,
She did it.
and change the world.
Who's with me?
I'm more of a 2 feet on the ground kind of guy.
It's gonna hurt
work tomorrow.
If she can STEM, so can you. Find out more at She Can STEM.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here. Thanks for coming back. We are with a formidable force, the Supervisor from Mason District, Penny Gross. Thank you so much for sticking around. We were touching a little bit on housing. Let's talk about that, because I know we grapple with this in Herndon. Not only the sort of the variety of product studios. We don't have any studios in Herndon. You know, how do we address this countywide in our region? Because we were starting to kind of touch on it a little bit.
I think affordable housing, or housing that is affordable, is going to be the hot button issue for the coming board in the next term. And we've already done some comprehensive plan changes that will allow additional housing in certain areas like Lincolnia and Seven Corners, but it needs the private investment to do it. We also need to be aware of the menu that we need. Some people really want small units. And I've had people say, well, why does anybody want to live in someplace that's small?
The younger folks.
The younger folks
do.
want it. Look at the District of Columbia and how many very expensive but small units are going. I mean, they don't even get on the market before they're snapped up. So we need to have that variety of units. And we also need the larger units, sometimes rental, 3 and 4 bedrooms. If you've got a family and you're going to be renting an apartment, you may need to have that
At
many
least
bedrooms.
3,
Yes, and so we need to be able to preserve some affordable housing, which we did very successfully a number of years ago when Jerry Connolly was chairman. And I think we will continue to work on putting our money where our mouth is, really. This year, the housing spend, just on the county side, is $138 million. And we're looking at possibly doing another penny for housing in the next budget, which will be about another $25 million.
Now, is that targeting affordable or workforce, or?
It would be probably workforce and affordable. Okay. The residences at the County Government Center was built on land that is owned by the county, and it's been extremely successful.
Now, for the folks at home, just a real quick definition of affordable versus workforce. The affordable actually has a component of public funding to it, correct?
Yes, it's based on what your income is, the average median. Okay. Workforce is something a little different, but it's for the folks who are working. Usually the younger folks who are getting into the workforce.
Yeah. And I like to think of our service people, our police officers, teachers, and the workforce, the bell curve of those folks, right?
And not only those, but also the folks who are perhaps clerks in the stores and are serving you at the, checking out your groceries and all of that. They all need to have some place to live.
Yeah, right.
That they can afford on their salaries.
I hear stories in Herndon that there are people that drive in Sunday night to work, live in a pretty cramped environment, and then leave Friday night. Right, and that's how people are getting by.
That's what they do in Palo Alto. You see in front of Stanford Stadium, an entire row. I counted 44 last year when I was there, 44 campers. I thought it was tailgate, but there was no football game that night.
Oh my God.
That's where people are living. They come in on Mondays and we don't have that here. We don't want that to happen here. But we need to be mindful of people need a place, a decent place to call home. You need to have some place when your shift is over, whether you're shift work or day, whatever, you gotta have the same place to put your head on the pillow. You know, that's just basic.
Well, keep driving that one, because we need that one. Love that you're doing that. We were gonna talk a little bit about sort of off of housing, kind of the environmental impact. So we've got all this density, all this stuff that needs infrastructure to support that. What are your views on where we are environmentally here?
Well, that's going to be one of our big challenges is as we are trying to do the built community and the built environment, what do we do about stormwater? Because when you build an impervious surface, because you need the area for roads and parking and so forth, then where does the water go? Stormwater has had a huge change. That was one thing we didn't talk about at all when I first came into office, and now it's really sometimes the only thing I talk about because I'm the chair of Environmental Committee, and for the restoration of the Chesapeake Bay that I've been working on for since 1998. This is a huge issue for us. It's runoff.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's going to find its way downhill. So how the developed community, the built community, addresses stormwater with underground cisterns, with gray infrastructure, with green infrastructure, that is a really important piece that causes sometimes to have to redo some of the plans because they couldn't make the stormwater work.
Oh.
It's a problem that most people don't see unless it rains like it did on July 8th.
Oh my gosh. Wiped out a lot of roads for the people that
Yes,
weren't
it
here.
did. Yes, it did. We got
Yeah.
a month's worth of rain in 1 hour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Insane.
yeah. And that will happen more frequently. We're going to have more intense,
Yeah.
more frequent rainstorms. And that's all part of what we need to build for. What we built 50 years ago isn't working. We need to be able to build for that too. So that's more of what the county will have to do in its site plans and in its approvals of building permits and so forth, is how the stormwater is going to be addressed.
Is the county internalizing some of the technology, solar paneling? You know, what's the county doing on that side?
We just had an RFP out for the largest power purchase agreement in the Commonwealth here in Fairfax County. We're doing a lot of work on solar and other things. The Chairman Bulova appointed me to the Joint Environmental Task Force that she put together, which is the school board and the Board of Supervisors, and we have some citizens on the task force looking at how we can maximize what we do together. And I will tell you, we've only had a couple of meetings with the citizen members of the group. They are so anxious to get started, and they're way ahead of us in some cases. So we're going to have to figure out and prioritize what they are recommending that we do and what we can actually do with the funding and the laws that we have. It's exciting, though.
Well, we'll watch the election and how that impacts Richmond.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, that is a huge issue for a lot of the younger residents. And what are we doing about energy? What are we doing about transportation? What are we doing about this whole housing issue? So I'm glad we've hit those all.
And climate change. It's all,
well, yeah,
you know,
it's
it's all those things. I call them the everyday aggravations of life, because that's what we're dealing with, is things that people are living with every single day that affects their lives. That's what we do at the local level. That's what we've always done at the local level. We get splattered by some of the national stuff across the river, but that's what we do at the local level. It's help people with their everyday problems, whether it be garbage collection, a tree fell, the stop sign is down, you know, how are you going to fix this road situation? What about the schools? Those are all local issues, and they're really stimulating. They really get your get your blood going.
I kind of knew it, but I see you still got the fire.
Oh yes,
and that's great.
Absolutely.
What else on the initiative list that you got out there for us?
Well, I think that one of the things also, because I chair the personnel committee at the county, we've been doing a lot of work with our own employees to make sure that their benefits and their retirement is secure. A lot has changed in the time I've been in office. The accounting that you have to do now for benefits, other employment benefits, is really sort of remarkable. It's changed the bottom line of our balance sheets, and I'm not going to go into it on television. It gets very complicated, but we want to make sure that Fairfax County is a good place to work in the county. We want all of our residents to also like working in the county, but we need to make sure that the people who are delivering services, county services, it's the police, it's the fire, it's our teachers, it's our park authority members, it's our librarians, all those folks find that they have a satisfying career in Fairfax County.
Well, and you have to pay them to remain competitive.
Absolutely.
Because guess what? We're in Herndon, we're doing the same thing. We're competing for those resources.
That's right.
Every town, every county, right across. What is it that's compelling them to stay? So that's huge.
Exactly.
I mean, I have no problem paying people what they deserve. I mean, I think, quite frankly, a lot of the services folks, they're underpaid.
And providing them the benefits that
absolutely.
they need to have. Health care and retirement are very important.
That's
very
huge.
important.
Especially in this area.
Yes, absolutely.
With Northern Virginia Hospital, I mean, everyone wants to go there because it's the best place to go, right? So, but you got to afford it.
We are so fortunate to live in Fairfax County. We really are. When I do national things, and I represent the county on a number of national boards, and people say, where are you from? And I'll start to say Virginia, and I'll say Fairfax County, and they go, oh. And I don't have to say anything more, because we're the envy of almost everybody. But we need to continue to work to maintain all that value.
I'm okay supporting any type of meals tax, any type of revenue, because I believe in order to protect that, you have to continually invest in it.
It's investment.
Right, and it's not just a one and done, it's over time, because you're always going to be behind if you think about it.
It's
the need.
constantly investing, and it does take time.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is a frustration. Sometimes it takes so much time to get things done. We have to follow the law. When I put my hand in the air each time to take the oath of office, I'm pledging to protect the Constitution and follow the law. I have to do that every single day.
And that's one thing I respect about everyone who takes that oath, and especially in Fairfax County, and I think more so in your district. It's very diverse. Mm-hmm. You are representing a huge, diverse swath of humanity, quite frankly.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many languages spoken, so many cultures. And I find it all so exciting because I learn a little bit more each day from people. We can't just glump everybody together as, oh, these are Hispanics and these are Asians. And there's a culture behind each one of those. And it's fascinating. Some of them have great similarities. Others have great differences, but they're all people. And they're all our neighbors.
Yeah, well, and they're human beings.
Absolutely.
Right, and I think too many people tend to forget that when you're in a debate or an argument, or you're fighting over resources, these are our neighbors.
That's right. That's right.
And we're not going anywhere. So what are we going to do to get through whatever issue we may have?
We need to do it all together. You need to include everybody. Listen. Sometimes the decision is not in somebody's favor, but you listen and you gather, and then you can use some of that information for the next one too. It's constantly, it's never static. It's constantly moving. It makes life interesting and exciting.
Well, I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say another 25 more years to you. If people want more information, where can they go?
They can go to www.pennygross.com. If you want to email me on campaign issues, it's gross.penny@gmail.com. On county issues, it's mason@fairfaxcounty.gov. Thank you so much, Cesar.
Oh my gosh, Penny, thank you so much. And all sincerity, I think having you on that board, your institutional knowledge, your background, and quite frankly, the fire that you still have. I'm amazed, I'm impressed, you're an inspiration, so please get it done. And come back again.
Thank you, I'll be glad to.
We'll do. We'll be right back, folks.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul.
Estimated time, 47 hours.
They will beg.
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
They will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking.
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
Eva Marie smoked 12,000 packs of cigarettes over 15 years. She quit And now there's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. No matter how much you smoked, early detection could save you. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi, folks. Thanks for coming back. Cesar here for our third segment. We have an exciting guest with us this evening. You know, it's campaign season. November's around the corner. Fairfax County is kind of the hotbed for education. People come here, they move here, they bring their families here. It's for our education system. The school board's a pretty important part of that, and what decisions get made impact our region. One of the guests I've got this evening is Abrar Omeish. She is the Democratic nominee for the at-large school board, and it's a very important race. I thought it'd be important for you all to get to meet her as we include everyone. She happened to be here this evening. Abrar, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a tough race. And but what kind of inspired you to get in? Because it's tough.
Yeah,
so
no, for
what
sure.
was it that motivated you to?
Yeah, no, and it's funny that you point out that it's tough because remembering why I'm doing it is precisely the motivation that's necessary to keep going forward. So I grew up in Fairfax County, you know, went through our public schools, elementary through high school, and it was my experiences there, realizing some of the disparities, seeing some of what my own friends would go through, and also recognizing that so much of my ability to succeed was tied to what my family was able to provide for me. That made me keenly aware of some of the challenges in our community. And that stuck with me. I mean, you know, in my home, we would always talk about the things that we were grateful for, and that was something that realizing the fact that I was born into a family, had no control over that. None of us choose our parents or the resources that we fall into. And how that impacts student outcomes and student success was a major concern for me. And we see that, I mean, nationwide, and it's no different here in our community. So, you know, I started off getting involved and ended up actually starting an organization to address this very issue. And it was through the work with the thousands of families that we were serving that I realized even more so the depth of the problem, and that these challenges start early, and that if we don't take deliberate steps, we're really situating ourselves to continuing to increase those gaps and really segregate our community.
As you were discussing these, obviously you've got support. Did you find resistance?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
Absolutely. You know, I come from a very academic kind of approach to some of these challenges, really trying to root policy solutions and ideas in nuance and data-driven sophistication. But of course, how do you translate a lot of that to the average person and make it accessible and digestible? So some of these topics are nerve-wracking or confusing for families. And certainly the topic of equity has been incredibly misunderstood. You know, when we think about what does it mean to have equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome, right? So leveling
well, you have
the
to
playing
have
field.
the opportunity before you can have
you can
the
even
outcome.
talk about the outcome, right? Exactly.
Wow.
And so there's confusion about that. A lot of times families feel that it's a zero-sum game, that when we elevate and empower those who we have historically disadvantaged, we're actually taking away from others. But
that
it's
is
not
a huge
the case,
issue.
right?
Sure, that's a huge issue.
Yeah, so in any case, that's kind of some of the direction of the resistance. But really, when I've never had a challenge when I have the opportunity to actually talk to someone or explain the issue or the solution or the idea. And that's always encouraging.
Do you find that that takes a little longer for you? You know, because people may say, well, this person's not part of us or part of the institution. And you're not trying to blame or offend, you just want to interject a different view, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, what's funny is we all kind of vie for that person who's not the politician, the person's people, the one who understands the struggles of the average person. But sometimes when that person comes along, they're so unfamiliar to us being in the political space that we don't know how to receive them. And so for sure, being a Muslim woman, being a young female, has come with its challenges, and trying to push forth, you know, not necessarily Democrat or Republican, you know, points of view or platforms, but really what I see to be right based on the facts and the realities on the ground has been something new. And I think that you know, that's posed something, people in general don't like change.
Right.
That's something we've seen across the board.
I've learned slowly, because I'm a slow learner, that when you interject that some people take it that, well, why haven't you been doing this all along? Right, and it's not that you're trying to do that, you're just trying to represent a different view. You're bringing to the table a different view because you're representing other people that don't have a voice.
Right. So, when we look at the policy sphere, there are different philosophies as to how people approach this. And many people look at policy change through incrementalism, that it's going to be only by baby steps that we can actually make a change.
Right.
And others believe that through more radical conversation, we could really push the needle on
I'm
critical
a blow it
things.
up kind of guy.
I know you are, I know. And truthfully, sometimes I think it's a symptom of being out of touch, because there are major injustices that happen. I mean, we don't even realize the plight of people who live below poverty, or who have to make major sacrifices just to have food on the table. And when we don't live that day to day and see the struggles of that, it's easy for us to think, well, we'll take time. 20 years from now, we can implement a policy. But people are suffering on a daily basis. That's not a cost that, I have the privilege not to bear that cost, but I have no right to then just say to someone, you can wait another 10 years.
Right.
So absolutely.
No, I hear you. I can't stand to see suffering.
Right.
And I can't stand to see us not at least trying to address the problem. No, it's too controversial, or no, it's too big. No, I believe in the change. Yes, if we need to do it incrementally, but when necessary, I like the big steps forward. So
absolutely.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and truthfully, it's a moral imperative on another level as well. I was raised in a religious home. It meant a lot to recognize, again, what we were given that we did nothing to have. And that any one of us, as a witness to the conditions of our community, is obligated to take advantage of the platform that we have, the privileges that we have. For me in particular, like I said, grew up in a home that gave me everything I ever needed, a community that was behind me, ended up with a Yale degree that gives me a platform to a certain extent, and exposure that many of my friends didn't have. And coming back now and having some level of roots and connections here to influence a change, it is my duty to
it's
use
your
that.
obligation.
Obligation, absolutely.
Right.
It's not
Right.
a convenient thing. I shouldn't be praised for doing it.
Right.
It's the absolute minimum that someone with such advantages puts forward.
Yeah,
So.
and I know my mom's watching out there. You were put here to make a difference.
Right?
You were put here to give back, not to extract.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right. I mean, so no. God bless your family.
Right back at you.
So, well, that's so. I know we're kind of like doing the personal thing, but a little bit more on. You decided to get into this thing, into the political arena. Were you prepared for it? Was it what you thought? I mean.
Yeah. I mean, we all know. Well, maybe not all of us, but. I had this idea in theory of what it's going to look like. I certainly was not naive to think that someone so different, as we've mentioned, would not face certain challenges. At the same time, truthfully, nothing quite prepares you. I mean, I've done every program out there in the books. I've been mentored by the best of the best in Girl Scouting, in Emerge, and various networks of women and professionals and progressives, and all of the programs that try to prepare folks to be a candidate and to know what they need to do. But really facing it on a daily basis, seeing the reactions and honestly, the judgments based on misinformation oftentimes is a whole nother thing to actually experience. And especially when you're, in my mind, I'm hearing that left and right, of course, there's a lot of momentum. We're really excited about the energy that we've instigated in the community. But then, every once in a while you get someone who misunderstands your position, or someone who just can't sit with the fact that a young person will be in office or something like that. And you think to yourself, I'm doing this for the kids. I'm doing this for your kids. You hate me, and I'm doing this for you and your family and your kids and the betterment of our community. So I think that's where it potentially hurts a little bit. But again, you remember why you're doing it, the families you're really fighting for, the values of which the reason that that you're even putting yourself up with that, and you compare, honestly. It's hard to find people who have integrity, who are willing to stand and have exhibit good character in the arena of politics. We know that in theory. So that additionally motivates me. I mean, to really think that, my voice is even more important to be in these spheres, because I mean, I have a rootedness that compels me to speak the truth and never falter on that, because really, if you're giving up your character and your integrity to get somewhere, what have you really accomplished? And so again, seeing the challenges around me, in fact, drive me further to make sure that there are people like me and like you and others at the table.
Yeah, and I think the diversity of this area, it lends itself, and I wish people would understand, it never is a zero-sum game.
Exactly.
Right, because we're helping these people over here doesn't mean we're hurting these people over here. It just means we're trying to address needs across the spectrum, right? And just because I help these people doesn't mean I want to take away or somehow punish these people.
Right, and it's, on one level, it can be a moral conversation where we're trying to balance things out. But in factually, it's not even necessarily doing that, right? We see plenty of economic theory that shows us the gaps in our economy are actually not sustainable. And then over time, our entire economy will collapse as a result of the degradation of public trust and whatnot. And that's, whether it's student outcomes or just community, even health outcomes for the community, all increase for everyone across the board when these disparities are mitigated. So it's really, it's not that we're helping one group at the expense of another, it's that we're elevating everyone together by paying attention to years of gaps that have been neglected.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, as we're coming to the break here, about some of the policies and initiatives you're...
Absolutely.
Because, by the way, I love your energy. Tonight's the energy night. So what are some of the things top of the list, if you could wave a wand?
Absolutely. Mental health has been something that's severely neglected. When I see what students go through, it is the top issue that comes up. And I've mentioned, we've engaged students in a way that's unprecedented. Every single one of them that I speak to generally mentions it as number one priority, but certainly top three priorities for all the kids. And lowering some of those ratios between psychologists and students, so we can have a psychologist who actually knows the name of the student and knows their need, is able to preempt the challenges that they face. So thinking of education more holistically, in that it's not just academic, but really a social and emotional development of a child, and really raising and nurturing that child. The other is, of course, looking at our staff, making sure that we're paying them with the salaries that they deserve, and treating them with the respect and dignity. And that's not just teachers, of course, which are a priority, but custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, everyone that makes up that community and serves as a role model for our kids in the building.
Because it really is a community.
That's right.
At that school, it's not just the teacher or the principal, it's all those staff members. Sure.
That have a position to impact the life of a child, right?
Because they've been there years, by the way.
Right.
And some of those folks, they're not there just a couple of years.
That's exactly right. So making sure that community school model is strong for everyone.
Well, let's finish up that topic. Let's talk a little bit more about some of your initiatives countywide, and I want to get down to some of the hot button items.
Absolutely.
So folks, come back to our last segment with our candidate for school board here.
Old man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious? It's my ball, Myrtleback. You're so dead.
I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
Dad.
See you, dude. See ya. Remember me and you're well.
Nice one. Some friends you are.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. One of some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about treetop life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Hi folks, Cesar here, our final segment with our guest, candidate for the at-large school board in Fairfax County, Abrar Omeish. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Absolutely.
Our last segment, I wanted to really kind of give you the opportunity to kind of drill down or highlight some of your initiatives we were talking about in the previous segment. So.
Absolutely. So I mentioned mental health and teacher and staff support and compensation.
Which is, by the way, the first time I've heard anyone really come out and push that.
Which kind of reveals the challenge itself, right?
Yeah.
Not talked about enough, not addressed seriously.
Well, let me say, it's not talked enough prior to this year. I mean, it's like the candidates that we have are really pushing that because it is a huge issue.
Yeah, and it has a lot of stigma surrounding it too. So those conversations need to start so that it becomes normal. But another thing I would talk about is, of course, there's the list of issues, right? So sustainability in our schools, that's critical. I mean, if we're really preparing our children for a future, we need to make sure they have one to live in. And leading by example, by making changes within the school system, whether that's electric buses, solar on schools, reducing plastics, which we've seen incredible student leadership on, by the way. Those are welcome steps. Facilitating the school gardens where kids can both learn and engage with nature to understand its importance. When it comes to working with all families. So this is, like I said, there's the list of issues, but what I really want to see done differently is the approach to these issues. And by that, I mean what engagement looks like with families. So growing up in this community, I certainly never felt like certain, members in leadership institutions understood my needs or, proactively sought out community input. That is critical because when we hear these issues, for example, mental health or, teacher pay, these things come to the fore because we're listening and because we care and are hearing what the community comes up with. We could have known some of these challenges and especially things like overcrowding and whatnot that's happening in the schools, had we been listening 10 years ago, had we been anticipating what's going on, had we been proactively engaging these communities and not just waiting for them to come and give angry speeches at school board meetings, right? But really having that arm as a part of the school system to be engaging with leadership of minority communities, of immigrant families, of folks who are lower income, and may not have the opportunity to come because they're working 2-3 jobs and can't come to a school board meeting, right? Or can't participate in their PTA for a variety of reasons we may not even realize, by the way. There are families who've even disenrolled their kids because they're afraid of things like ICE. And whether that's true or not in Fairfax County, these are the communities that we're serving, and not just some, small, some minority of the school system. We're talking about over 50% of our kids that go to the schools, coming from immigrant backgrounds, speaking a second language at home. And when we look at who's represented now, who comes forward, who speaks at these meetings, absolutely, families we want to hear from and continue hearing from, but there are so many empty seats. And paying attention to who those people are is really that approach that I want to see done differently, that it's more proactive again, and sincere and genuine about hearing from the community rather than just having to deal with, issues that come up and staying safe and warm in a seat.
Right. Because that is really the crux of, I think, why it's so important for people that are new to be given the opportunity to run for these offices, because you bring the different perspective. Because unless the electeds hear the problems, then the choice is, well, do I want to fix it? Do I want to tackle that? Or is that too controversial? But as a new person, you don't care. You want to get something done.
Right.
And I think, and commit to not committing to staying in office if you're not fighting for those issues.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, that's why you're there. You're there to make that. I don't have to tell you that, but I just want to remind people that you are there. You are here for a reason. You're here to make a difference, and not to keep that seat warm.
Right, and if you're there for the right reasons, you'll know when your time is up, when your contribution is no longer there. Right. A friend actually put it aptly, which she was saying it's like a superpower, having a particular perspective, or being a minority, or being having lived in poverty, or whatever it is, because it's kind of like something like X-ray vision, where you're able to see things other people aren't able to see. And I know it sounds a little bit childish, but the idea is when you so just think about the journey of someone to make it to a school board meeting. First, they had to have understood the language to be able to know what's going on.
The issues.
And not just language as in English, the jargon of that language. The parents had to have been a certain class, a certain educational background to be able to access that. Then you also had to feel like your community is safe. And it's incredibly different across communities depending on what they face, right?
Absolutely.
So that's another aspect of it. You also had to have internet access at home. You needed to have resources, a computer, multiple computers at home, so that you can have the luxury of just browsing and looking at school board websites. Right. So we'll get to that too, right? Then you had to be able to afford a lifestyle where you could not work in the evening and attend a meeting like that. And then you had to also have the confidence in your English and your knowledge, and the time, by the way, to keep up with what's going on. To be able to go and speak and feel like you're making a difference on an issue. And you had to have a car to be able to drive there, right? So there's so many things that, people who are lucky enough and blessed enough to have a certain level of, wealth or whatever, don't even realize are challenges that other people are facing. For them to just at most basic level be engaged and involved and see what's going on.
If you have those options, you are privileged.
Exactly.
Right, because I can tell you, things you rattled off, no.
Yeah, and we take for granted 9% of this county lives in poverty. No. That's a shocking number. I mean, we're proud of Fairfax County. I've always grown up knowing that it's one of the wealthiest, most educated, top school systems in the country. But I think at some level we ought to ask ourselves, how much of our top scores, how much of our performance is in fact a reflection of wealth and the conditions in our community, as opposed to maybe what we're actually doing as a school system.
No, you bring up a great point, because I know for Herndon, we have great schools. The test scores don't reflect it,
right?
But it's a huge English as a second or third language group. So it's not testing their intelligence, it's testing the proficiency. And some of those kids, I mean, they're on free lunches,
right?
The free meals program. I mean, so all these economic drivers, because of their situation.
Right. Families that are unable to access, even starting at pre-K. Studies show the incredible impact of just that first step in future success. And the achievement gap has translated, we've seen it in that. The fact that it hasn't been even, mitigated since 2005. There are communities, particular race is in fact a predictor now of whether you will be successful or not, whether you'll be able to score certain levels or not on standardized testing. We're talking 30-point differences amongst groups of students. And if those are students that were in our care from the beginning, that's our failure for not having brought them up to the level where they'll...
Because there's a systemic issue.
Exactly.
And how they're being either taught or nurtured.
Right, and so the second thing I really want to see with more urgency is that partnership in a serious way, and SCIPT was a welcome step towards this, but between the Board of Supervisors and the school board and all the various institutions of power in our community, to have these conversations, but to also take serious steps towards addressing it. When we think of things like the achievement gap, that's not a school board only issue.
Right.
We're not going to be able to address that only through education. Poverty, obviously, as we've talked about, plays into it. Transportation, access to food and housing. Penny Gross was talking about affordable housing. The wait list has been so long, and there are families that have to drive miles in, and it's teachers that can't afford to live in the school zones that they teach in. So these are all conversations that go beyond the school board. And when we think about facilitating a community that in fact allows for opportunity for everyone, the values of a meritocracy in our country, and that if you work hard you'll make it, and the American dream and whatnot, bringing us as close as we can get to that would require us to ensure that just that basic level playing field, a child in pre-K, which is not accessible to everyone, so let's just say kindergarten. If that's not even an equal playing field, a place where two children from different backgrounds can have the potential to succeed, then we're not setting up a community that is for everyone, or has that equality of opportunity for everyone.
No, you're sustaining the generational disadvantage of that child or that segment of,
right.
of the population.
And over time, over 10, 20, 30 years, a generation, we start to see that manifest in ways that are cyclical, right? So it self-perpetuates, and we end up with major gaps in our community that make it unhealthy for everyone.
So I agree with everything you're saying. I think it's awesome. Collaborating, because school board is a collaborative body. So what's your approach to kind of nudge some of these other people?
Yeah. So it's great that school board is considered an independent position, and I take that very seriously. I think it's very important for us to keep partisanship and politics away from the decisions we're making for our kids. I see consensus building and coming to an agreement as first something I look through psychology for, rather than politics or policy even. When I can relate to a human being, when I can appreciate the perspective and the opinions that they come with, when I can give them the dignity of listening to them and listening sincerely and humbly to them, those are some of the basic ways of coming to that common understanding that I don't see in our politics. There is a ridiculing of each party on both sides. I see it, on my side, and I know that it's happening on the other, So coming in with that genuine perspective and priority that the kids are first, and so we have to come to a solution, right? So how do we come about doing that? Having been someone who grew up feeling unheard, I do have a soft spot in my heart for making sure that everyone feels respected and that their voice is dignified, whether they completely disagree with me or not. So that's my commitment to all families, to be accessible. And in fact, I have even been speaking with groups that I've been strongly advised not to from a partisan perspective, because I want to make sure that all communities and families feel heard, even if even if they come with the quote unquote craziest ideas. Let's bring it to the table. Let's hear, because they're hurting, right? And how can I disrespect that experience to such a degree, not even to listen to them?
Yeah, and it's even more important in nonpartisan races to really listen to all sides.
Exactly.
I mean, I've gotten some of the best ideas from other people. We bring our worldview, and that tends to line up with one side, but the other side or other sides may have some great ideas as well. So.
Right. No, absolutely. And in addition to ideas, that you want to have a system that's open to everyone. So we hear from everyone and make sure we seek out those people who also are not in the room to bring forth the best and brightest ideas.
So you're always learning new stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anyone who tells you they know everything is not being truthful.
No, I think we, especially now in the information age, there's always something else new to learn. So.
Right. So we're excited to make sure that we lead by example, to do that and model that for our kids as well.
Real quick, your website if people want more information?
Yes, www.abraromeish.com, A-B as in boy, R-A-R-O, M as in Mary, E-I-S-H.
And we'll put that on the subtitle here. Thank you so much for coming out.
It's a pleasure being here.
No, my pleasure. Folks, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you at the next show. Thanks again.